Today I'm going to be talking about how giving up and surrendering is the first step in overcoming depression. It may be counterintuitive, but it absolutely works, and I'll explain why. Hi everyone. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about depression and why giving up and surrendering some of your goals is actually critical in overcoming depression. But before I get into that, just a couple of disclaimers to go over. I'm a registered psychologist in the province of British Columbia, Canada, and this video is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as a replacement or substitute for advice from your doctor or mental health professional. Now, with those things out of the way, let's start talking about how you overcome depression. Now, there are a lot of misperceptions and misunderstandings about depression, and one of which that I tend to encounter a lot with my clients is that they perceive that depression, or they or some of their family members or friends perceive that their depression is resulting from them just giving up. They stop trying, they stop putting any effort into getting better, and all they really need to do is to just try harder or to work harder to overcome the depression. Now, that is one of the main issues and main problems that tends to perpetuate depression. And that's actually one of the ways that depression wants you to think in order to keep the depression going. And so to explain, I want you to imagine your level of motivation and energy, and to think about your goals and expectations of yourself based on levels of motivation and energy. Now, most of the time in our lives, our goals, our expectations of ourselves kind of match where our level of motivation and energy actually is. So we have the energy and motivation to achieve the goals, to accomplish the things that we think we ought to be accomplishing. Now, when life setbacks happen, when stressors happen, when failures or losses occur, what that can do is it can sap a person's energy or motivation. And so what that person's energy and motivation, what happens to that person's energy and motivation is it drops a little bit. And so now their energy and motivation is lower. And it's lower than the amount of energy and motivation required to achieve their goals or expectations of themselves. So if you have goals and expectations that are greater than the amount of energy and motivation you actually have, what do you think that's going to do to your ability to complete those goals? What do you think that's going to do to your ability to live up to your expectations of yourself? Well, you're probably not going to be able to achieve those goals and expectations. If you don't have the energy required to do it, you're not going to be able to do it. So, what do you think happens when you fail to achieve goals or expectations for yourself? What do you think that does to energy and motivation? Well, it causes the energy and motivation to drop even further. And so now your motivation and energy is lower, even lower than it was, because you are failing to live up to the expectations and goals you have for yourself. And so your expectations and goals are here, and your energy and motivation are down here. So what's tempting at this point is to tell yourself, okay, you know what, come on, just let's get over this. Just pick yourself up by the bootstraps and just try harder. And this is one of the key problems that I often see in depression, and it's what I call the trying harder problem. That you recognize that you're not living up to your goals and expectations, and so you just try harder to achieve those goals and expectations. But the problem is, if your level of energy and motivation doesn't match those goals and expectations, no matter how hard you try, you're still going to fail to achieve those goals and expectations, which then drives your motivation and energy even further down, because now you're failing to achieve your goals and expectations for yourself, even though you're trying really hard. And so it's easy to start to wonder, okay, what's going on? What's wrong with me that I can't accomplish anything? What's wrong with me that I'm not able to do the things that I should be doing? And that failure just saps motivation and energy, and these constant failures that start to build on each other because I'm trying harder, but I'm not achieving what I think I should be accomplishing. And it just drives my motivation and energy further and further down. Failure saps motivation and energy. And what often happens in depression is that a person gets into this failure cycle where they're failing to achieve their goals or expectations of themselves, which makes them feel worse about themselves, which drives their energy and motivation down, which causes them to not be able to live up to the goals and expectations, which then spirals them even further down. So it's not uncommon when I'm working with someone in depression, when they first arrive in my office, their level of motivation, energy may be down here, yet what they expect of themselves is up here. And so the question becomes, what do you do with that? How do you overcome this? If my level of goals is way lower than what I expect of myself and what I think I should be doing and what I used to be doing, how do I make that change? How do I change that? And the solution isn't to just try harder or work harder or pick yourself up by the bootstraps or to just, give yourself a kick in the pants to get going. Because that's the type of stuff, that's the type of attitudes that drive motivation and energy down. So the first step in terms of overcoming depression, like I said earlier, it's counterintuitive, but it's actually to give up and to surrender your goals and expectations. Surrender those higher goals and expectations that you have of yourself, and to actually drop your goals and expectations to match where your level of energy actually is. A metaphor I use to explain this to my clients is to imagine yourself riding a bike. And you're going along on your bike ride and you come to a stop sign. And you bring your bike to a complete stop. What happens if you try to start riding your bike again, but your bike's in 10th gear? Well, you can push as hard as you want on those pedals. It's going to be really, really difficult to get going because your bike is just in too high of a gear. So what do you need to do to get going again? Well, what you do is you drop your gear down into first gear and you start going. Now, that doesn't mean you spend your entire bike ride in first gear. You're just dropping it into first gear so that you can get moving. And then you gradually gear up, second gear, third gear. And eventually, you're back up to 10th gear and you're riding at full speed. It's kind of the same thing in depression. When their energy and motivation is really low, but they're expecting really high expectations, well, that's kind of like riding your bike or trying to ride your bike in 10th gear from a full stop. No matter how hard you try, you're not going to be able to get going. So by surrendering and giving up on those bigger goals, what you do is you drop your expectations of yourself to match your actual level of motivation and energy. Not the level of motivation and energy that you think you should have, Not the level of motivation and energy that you wish you had or you feel you should have, but the actual level of motivation and energy that you do have. And so if your goals are now matching your level of energy, do you think you're going to be able to achieve those goals? Well, yeah, probably. You're probably going to be able to achieve the goals because your energy is down here, but your goals and expectations are down here as well. And so you're likely to succeed at those goals. And what do you think happens to energy and motivation when you succeed at a goal? Well, it improves. Now, the key thing is it doesn't just improve and like sort of your energy and motivation jumps up to what it was before. It improves just a little bit. And so the idea is to then set another goal that's maybe a little bit higher that matches your level of motivation and energy. And if your goal matches the motivation and energy that you have, you're likely to succeed at that goal. And your energy may pick up a little bit more. And then you set another goal based on that new level of energy. And so what you're doing is you're gradually building up your energy and motivation by setting up these stepwise goals to help you experience successes. And that's the key. What we know is that what drives depression is a series and spiraling of failure. To overcome depression, what you need to do is to be able to build successes. And it's going to gradually bring your level of motivation and energy up. And you may be able to bring your motivation and energy up back to where it was before you began to experience depression. Now, sometimes, though, what you realize through this process is that the level of goals and expectations you had before you became depressed, well, maybe those level of expectations and goals were what actually contributed to the start of the depression in the first place. And maybe the expectations and goals were way too high. And so you weren't able to sustain that level of functioning, and that led to the deterioration and the drops and the failures that started the depression cycle. And so part of this process may be to recognize that I need to set more realistic goals and expectations of myself. That maybe what I was expecting of myself before wasn't actually realistic or sustainable. And so I need to make some adjustments. That you won't know until you start working on this process and seeing where you get to in terms of energy and motivation. But this is the single fastest way to build and recover from depression. A lot of my clients will first look at this process and they'll say, hey, this seems like it's going to take forever. But the reality is, it doesn't take forever. You pick up steam as you start to experience successes, as you start to feel like you're accomplishing things again. It starts to create a positive spiral that works you up out of the depression. But it's a lot faster than trying to overcome your depression by living up to really high expectations that you just don't have the energy and motivation to do. And so I'll be doing future videos on how you actually set goals to help to begin this positive spiral out and to be able to set goals based on your level of motivation and energy. So keep an eye out for those videos when they come out. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas about this notion of surrendering or giving up as a key first step in overcoming depression. So please leave me some comments and thoughts down below. If you're enjoying my videos and would like to see more, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll be alerted every week when I post a new video. So thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.